Welcome back to More to the Story. I'm Lucas Kitchen, and this is episode 6 in our special podcast series called The History of the Holy Land, From Abraham to Hamas. If you want to take a look at previous episodes, either in video or audio format, or get transcripts, you can do all of that and more by going to freegrace.in. This episode is called Longing for Home. Last time on More to the Story, we talked about the Jewish diaspora. Jewish communities were spread all throughout the world. And in this episode, we're going to focus on, in particular, the Jewish communities and what they faced in Europe. Jews faced many problems, but these problems allowed for the rise of what's known as Zionism, where Jewish leaders like Theodor Herzl pushed for a separate Jewish state where Jews could live safely and freely. We'll explore how this grew, how it faced challenges, and eventually led to the creation of the State of Israel. Join us as we dive deep into this important part of history.
In 1744, a piece of British legislation called the Jew Bill was proposed to grant naturalization rights to Jews residing in the country. However, it faced opposition from the Anglican Church and some members of Parliament, leading to its eventual rejection.
The bill's failure highlighted the anti-Semitic sentiments prevalent in 18th century Britain and the resistance to granting Jews equal rights and recognition.
It wasn't until the 19th century that legal restrictions against Jews in Britain were lifted, allowing for greater integration and civil rights for the Jewish community there. Britain wasn't the only place that was experiencing anti-Semitism in Europe.
Captain Alfred Dreyfus, a French Jewish officer, was falsely accused of treason in 1894 based on flimsy evidence and allegations of espionage for Germany. Dreyfus was subjected to a hasty trial and subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment on Devil's Island, a penal colony off the coast of French Guiana.
The case took a dramatic turn when evidence of Dreyfus's innocence came to light. A public debate ensued, exposing anti-Semitism within French society.
While anti-Semitism was on the rise in Europe, there were also prevailing changes within the Jewish communities. They were moving from small towns and villages to cities, and this was due to industrialization.
The rise of factories and urbanized population centers led to Jewish communities gaining greater economic, political, and cultural influence. Jews became a vital part of the rapidly changing modern world.
The centuries of treachery and persecution had left the quickly urbanizing Jews wishing for rest, peace, and an end to the constant violence. In the late 19th century, the Zionist movement led by a man named Theodor Herzl emerged.
Zionists called for Jewish self-determination, essentially a homeland for world-spread Jews. Herzl believed Jews needed a safe and secure place to call their own, especially considering the rising anti-Semitism in Europe.
This idea led to the convening of the First Zionist Congress in 1897, where Herzl and others discussed the idea of establishing a Jewish homeland in Palestine, modern-day Israel, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire.
Before the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire had been a vast and powerful government that controlled many parts of the Middle East, including Palestine. However, as World War I unfolded, the Islamic Empire crumbled. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire begged the question of what would happen to Palestine.
In 1917, during World War I, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration. This declaration said that Britain supported the creation of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This statement marked the first time a major world power officially endorsed a Jewish home in the land that is now Israel.
In the year 1920, the British Mandate for Palestine was established. This was a period when the British government took control of Palestine. They were given the responsibility of governing the area by the League of Nations. During this time, the British set policies and rules for the region.
An organic migration to the land of Palestine began. As more Jewish people arrived, they built communities and settlements. All this was taking place as things were getting worse in Europe for the Jews who lived there.
In 1938, Herschel Greenspan, a 17-year-old Polish Jew, fueled by despair and anger over the deportation of his parents, assassinated Ernst vom Rath, a German embassy official in Paris, on November 7th.
This sparked a horrifying retaliation. Nazis and their sympathizers unleashed a wave of violence on November 9th and 10th, vandalizing and destroying over 1,000 synagogues and 7,500 Jewish businesses.
In Vienna, Zindel Greenspan, no relation to Herschel, a 65-year-old devout Jew, experienced the ruthless brutality of this pogrom. He was forcibly dragged from his home, mercilessly beaten, his beard desecrated, and forced into humiliating manual labor, cleaning the Nazi-defiled streets. He died of his grievous injuries shortly thereafter.
This orchestrated wave of terror later became known as Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. Following the ferocious brutality of Kristallnacht, the Nazi regime intensified its persecutory onslaught against the Jews with momentum towards systematic annihilation.
We'll be right back with more of the history of the Holy Land, but first, this.
Discover the Free Grace Kids Eternal Life Curriculum, an evangelistic teaching curriculum specially crafted for elementary-age children. It's great for Sunday school, VBS, or homeschool. Over 12 impactful lessons, children will learn about the gospel through engaging large and small group lessons, along with exciting activities and accompanying videos that will make them giggle. This dynamic resource empowers young hearts and minds with the life-changing message of eternal life. Get this and other resources for kids at freegrace.in.
Embark on a cosmic journey with Missionary to Mars by Lucas Kitchen. Meet Eustace Grimes, a cyber nerd in a perilous solar system, hunted by Admiral Strafe. Join his unexpected heroics, fueled by faith, love, and hope. This 4.9-star Christian sci-fi novel awaits on freegrace.in.
Welcome back. Before the break, we heard about how the Nazis were intensifying their plans against European Jews, bringing about a terrible persecution known as Kristallnacht. Now, let's hear more.
In its immediate aftermath, around 30,000 Jewish men were arrested, including individuals like Herschel Grynszpan's father, Sendel Grynszpan, and were incarcerated in concentration camps such as Dachau and Buchenwald.
By the opening of the 40s, World War II was raging. But even the Allied forces' relentless march toward Berlin didn't stop Hitler's Nazis from their dark designs. Their relentless persecution culminated in the final solution, as they called it, during the Wannsee Conference on January 20th, 1942, where high-ranking Nazis, like Reinhard Heydrich and Adolf Eichmann, formalized plans for the mass extermination of Jews across Europe.
Thereby sealing the frightful fate of millions in the abyss of concentration and extermination camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Majdanek, orchestrating an unspeakable symphony of death and atrocity.
This was likely the most horrific atrocity the world has ever seen. The entire affair would soon become known worldwide as the Holocaust.
World War II in Europe officially ended on May 7, 1945, when the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany was accepted by the Allied forces, and victory in Europe, VE Day, was celebrated on May 8, 1945.
Helena Citronova, a Slovak Jew, was among the survivors when British forces liberated Bergen-Belsen concentration camp on April 15, 1945. For years, she had endured the brutal conditions and horrifying treatment at the hands of the Nazis. At the moment of liberation, Helena felt a mix of emotions.
There was relief and joy at being freed, but also pain and sadness for the many lives lost, including most of her loved ones. Horrific scenes of human suffering, like what Helena experienced, were prevalent across Poland, Germany, Austria, and the Czech Republic.
When the horrifying realities of the concentration camps were finally laid bare before the global audience, the reaction was one of collective shock, disbelief, and profound sorrow.
Newsreels and photographs documenting the liberation of the camps circulated around the world, revealing the unimaginable scale of suffering and the inhuman conditions endured by the survivors.
Governments and citizens alike grappled with the grotesque evidence of mass extermination, starvation, and systemic cruelty perpetrated by Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime. In the aftermath, there was a universal call for justice, leading to the Nuremberg trials, where key architects of the Holocaust were held accountable.
The revelations also bolstered a decisive push for human rights, culminating in the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Amidst the shadows of grief, a new global resolve emerged, vowing never again to allow such atrocities to blight humanity.
The horrifying events of the Holocaust shocked the world, and many people around the globe felt deep sympathy for Jewish survivors who had lost their families, homes, and ways of life.
The world felt a responsibility to help and became more supportive of Jewish refugees who had escaped the genocide and were looking for new places to live.
UN General Assembly Resolution 181, also known as the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine, was passed on November 29, 1947. It called for the partition of British Mandate Palestine into two separate states. One Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem as a corpus separatum, an international city administered by the United Nations.
The plan was intended to establish separate states for both groups. While the resolution was accepted by the Jewish leadership, it was rejected by the Arab states.
On May 14, 1948, Israel declared its independence, officially establishing the State of Israel. This declaration marked a turning point in history, as it meant that there was now a recognized and independent country for Jewish people.
There was now, after many, many years, a recognized and independent country for Jewish people. War with the Arabs of the region was on the horizon, but before we explore that period that followed the establishment of Israel, we're going to rewind 2,000 years and take a look at what happened in the land in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to The History of the Holy Land from Abraham to Hamas, created by me, Lucas Kitchen, and produced by Free Grace International. For previous episodes, video or audio versions of the podcast, or transcripts, you can go to freegrace.in. Would you consider becoming a supporter of our journey through time? You can do that by visiting our website, freegrace.in. You can subscribe, you can explore exclusive content, joining discussions, becoming part of our community. If you subscribe, you can get daily, weekly, or just occasional updates through email. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us by emailing info@freegrace.in. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to being back with you sometime soon.